Willie Mays dying, like, especially when the word had come out either the day before or that day, like, no, he's not going to be able to attend in person. And then the day ends and Willie Mays dies. And not only is Willie Mays one of the was one of the three living Negro Leaguers, he is from Birmingham, and he's Willie Mays. Like, I don't know if it's possible to convey to younger people what a big deal Willie Mays was, because baseball doesn't have that same place where you just hear about it, like these legendary figures of baseball. Like, we knew all those guys when we were younger. I don't know if it rings the same way, if it's possible to explain to them, but this is like Joe Louis dying or something like that. Like, Willie Mays may have been America's best living athlete for who knows how long.
I think that it's hard to also put in perspective how big he was at the time, because baseball was bigger than football. Basketball wasn't even really a thing at the level that we know it today when Willie Mays first started at 17 years old for the Birmingham Black Barons. Like, to be in high school and going and playing with grown men took Satchel Paige, who was throwing, let the old heads tell it, 105, 106, 107. Willie Mays as a teenager took that boy 400 feet. So the idea of what he was at the time and what he became, I just don't think young people will ever have a scope for it, because they just don't have a scope for what baseball has meant to so many people, especially Black people.
And New York used to mean something in this country that it doesn't now. Like, it's still New York City, but all the TV shows were about New York. Like, it was the media capital of the world before there was an internet. So much of what went on in New York was the centerpiece of stuff. And so you had Gil Hodges and Duke Snider in Brooklyn. You had Mickey Mantle playing for the Yankees, and you had Willie Mays playing for the Giants. And Willie Mays was that dude. Then they moved to San Francisco, and I've been trying to come up with a comparison for what it was like. But, you know, the Dodgers and the Giants moved to California in the 1950s in the same year. It's almost as if, like, you know how the NWA came out and it was like, oh, there's a rapper from L.A.? What if whoever the hottest rapper in New York was in 1988, right? Let's say Run DMC or LL Cool J. LL Cool J has now moved to San Francisco, and we got rap in San Francisco now. Like you got the best rapper in New York, and now he belongs to you and your team.
I really feel like his passing and the celebration that they're doing here in Birmingham, you know, I'm just happy. You know, I spoke with Ferdinand Rutledge last night during the game, and he said that he's happy that they're being honored, but he's sad because so many Negro Leaguers are dead and gone who never got their day in the sun, who never got the pensions that have been approved now, who never got to see their statistics elevated. So it's kind of a bittersweet thing. And I think Willie's passing kind of cements that point to a degree. And so that part of it, it's a tough pill to swallow. I'm happy they're getting their day in the sun, but man, those brothers went through a lot and it was never talked about in history. I live in Birmingham. They never taught us half the history of Rickwood Field and the Negro Leagues. Like, you know, Alabama history, you know, when they talk slavery and they talk slavery briefly, and then they go fire hose, and then Birmingham jail letter, and then Barack Obama. Like, what happened in between all that? Oh, don't worry about that.
Not even Michael Jordan? Y'all don't even take a little moment to talk about that time Mike came down there?
It's a football town. By the time Jordan was peaking, we was a football town. Gene Stallings, Derek Lassick and them at won in 92. Jordan was cool, but nobody reminisces about, man, remember when Michael Jordan went 1 for 4 with a single? Everyone says they saw Jordan play. Ask them what he did on the field. It's not remembered. And I don't say that in a disrespectful way because I know Jordan got goons. But the idea that baseball has this same lasting, living feeling within the South, I think is part of why the history of Rickwood is just kind of, you know, just glossed over and looked over. We're talking about a field, bro, where the first ever integrated sporting event happened in the state of Alabama. In the state of Alabama, blacks and whites on the same team happened at Rickwood Field with the Birmingham Barons in 1965. That same game was also the first integrated stands in the state of Alabama. So, bro, You got blacks and whites on the field, you got blacks and whites in the stands. And I think part of why that was able to happen was because blacks and whites had come to Rickwood more than enough times over the past decades to watch the Black Barons ball the hell out. They gave away razor blades as the fan giveaway, which I don't think is a smart thing to do when you're mixing black people and white people for the first time ever.
No, hold on. So the first integrated sporting event in the state of Alabama, and the bobblehead of the day was actually razor blades.
Imagine if a fan had a razor blade when Kyrie went into the crowd the other night in Game 5. It's a magical place, bro. It really is a magical place. I played high school ball there, and we didn't really know. Birmingham, so many buildings are 100 years old in history. So you just never know that, 1/3 of all Hall of Famers set foot on this grass. So the idea that Satchel Paige came through there, Rube Foster, and so many other greats, Piper Davis, like they all played on that field. Jackie Robinson played. It's insane to think about, and to know that type of history is still standing. It's just a beautiful thing, man. So we're going to celebrate Willie Mays this week. We're going to celebrate him. We're going to have a good time remembering the legacy that he contributed to the game of baseball, and also about how to just be a good person off the damn field, bro. Like I was thinking about, they show those old pictures of Willie Mays just out in the street playing with kids. What athlete today in this meme era, other than KD going to Rucker and trying to ball for real? Like, KD wasn't trying to take no pictures with Willie Mays. Oh, I love the kids. We just out here playing. KD was like, no, I'm putting no buckets on y'all. What athlete today do we know that just has that same reverence and love for the black community?
Well, I think part of that too, some of that is just a function of the money that these dudes make now, because Willie Mays lived in a neighborhood with actual people. Part of that is just how New York gets down, right? So if you were going to be black and living in New York and live around black people, you can't just be like, no, I'm only going to live around the rich black people. That's not really how it works. It ain't enough of us, right? Y'all might all live in the same goddamn house. Like, there's just not enough room for everybody to make that happen. But like, I had been thinking about that when I was getting ready for this show, is the idea that you might have lived on the same block with Willie Mays, and he was Mr. Mays at the end of your block and coming out there and playing stickball with y'all and doing similar things, being out in San Francisco when athletes lived among the people. Like, it was such a different dynamic all the way around. But just imagine that we were out here playing stickball and Willie Mays came out.
And to people like KD's credit, or even Kobe, I think Kobe went to Rucker at one point as well. Like, if you show up now in this selfie camera, social media era, somebody trying to cross you. If Willie Mays was playing today and he went outside to play ball, somebody would throw high and inside and try and break his jaw so that they can get put on. It's sad, but I think the dope thing about last night at the throwback game at Rickwood was that Willie Mays got a 90-second round of applause after the announcement was made, man. And I think that the people of Birmingham and the baseball fans that are coming to town this week, I think they're very intent on making sure that this is a celebration of his life, and as much as we can, trying to keep it a little jovial in between the tears.
It's not quite as sad when 93 dies, right? Like, I think we all need to be real with ourselves and how we process such things. Like, when 17 dies, that's really tragic. When 93 dies, we're sad, we mourn, we grieve, but a tragedy is not really like the way that we view it. I think it becomes easier, I think, to wind up in a celebratory place when it comes with him. And the other part is, I think it's part of what I talked about earlier, where I'm not sure everybody is really up on game when it comes to him, but there is a real argument. Willie Mays is one of the 3 greatest baseball players who ever lived, period, right? Like, I don't think that you can come up with any list of the greatest baseball players that does not have him number 3 at the lowest. If you want to put Ruth over him, fine. If you want to put Bonds over him, fine. I don't think there's anybody else that you could say that you wanted to put over Willie Mays. What I hope that people can get a handle on, and if you check out the documentary that Nelson George did for HBO, I want to say last year, I didn't have the greatest grasp on this until that doc, which is what a stone cold beast we are talking about here. Like, it's one thing to look at the numbers and you see that one catch, but I don't think you even have the full context of that. Willie Mays running around center field and hitting like he did at 5'11", 170 pounds. it was different, man. It was different. Nobody's clips are holding a candle to that.
How do we even account for, also with the Negro Leagues, I feel like there's two things we have to account for. Because we start counting home runs. We also have to remember they was hitting home runs in spots that was 480 straight away. Rickwood Field here in Birmingham, the old brick wall behind the existing wall, it's 480 straight away, 400 down the line. How many more homers would he have been hitting if it was 330 down the line? If it was a casual 400 straight away. Number one, you got to account for that with Negro Leaguers. Number two, they played in wool. Have you ever worn wool? Do you understand the level of heat stroke you are risking every day? Wool, and you're getting called nigger every single time you're at the heat of racism and the heat of the sun working concurrently for you to still hit a ball 480 feet. You got to put them over bonds off of that, just off the top, bro.
Willie Mays hit 50 home runs in 2 stadiums where no one else hit 50 home runs. The Polo Grounds, which was 480 to dead center, and Candlestick Park, which was a video game with the no home run cheat code on. Willie Mays hit 50 home runs in both of those places and nobody else did. And while we on it, Johnny Mize hit 51 of the Polo Grounds also. My bad. But while we on it, Willie Mays, also if it's 480 to dead center, somebody got to cover all that ground. And Willie Mays was covering all that ground.
I really think that it's really understated just what he meant to the sport, but also to the waves of men who came after him, through the Negro Leagues. Because the other thing that he showed is that, yeah, there's a path through this. You can get through this. But, and talking about, so we did this podcast for MLB and NPR called Road to Rickwood. And it was just 4 episodes where we talked to OGs who used to play, folks who helped build the field, blah, 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 right? And a lot of the OGs was telling me that the other part of the equation at that time to make it as a Black person in baseball was that there was a temperament you needed to possess, because you could have the numbers, but if you don't have the attitude, you're not going to make it. And I think that was a very, very important part of why I think Willie was able to get to where he was, because like Al Holt told me straight up, I had good numbers, but I knew the first time somebody called me nigga, I'm going to step on your neck with them spikes and I'm going to close the door for everybody else. And so to have that awareness of what he is doing is setting the table for everybody that's coming after. And I think that's the other thing. I don't think there's any player today that is playing under such a politically divisive spotlight as people like Jackie and Willie were at those times, where the country was all tense.
With Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' projected stats, and you're locked in. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.